not burned out, at least not in the way you think. What if I told you that the exhaustion you're feeling isn't your fault, and that calling it burnout might be the very thing that's preventing your recovery? Hi, I'm Dr. Ben. I'm a pediatric cardiologist, medical educator, and a physician coach. I've worked with hundreds of physicians, and I've discovered something disturbing. Most doctors are misdiagnosing their own professional dissatisfaction and suffering. And the frustration or the problem is the solution you need depends entirely on correctly identifying the problem. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the critical difference that could change everything about how you heal from the issues that you've developed by working in medicine. I've spent years coaching physicians who come to me saying, I'm burned out, I'm tired, I need to leave medicine, I am done with this. But as we work together and we dig deeper, many discover they're actually suffering from something that's slightly different, moral injury. The reason it's important to differentiate between the two is that the treatments for these two conditions are completely different, which is why so many physicians try burnout remedies that never seem to work. So today, I'll break down exactly what each condition really means, how to tell which one you're experiencing, and most importantly, the specific recovery path for each one. Let me start by asking you, do you feel exhausted all the time? Have you tried all the things that they say to try, like meditation, time off, or trying to establish a better work-life balance, but nothing seems to really help? Do you feel guilty for not being able to provide the care that your patients deserve, maybe due to systemic issues that prevent you from providing that care? These are classic signs that you might be misdiagnosing your professional suffering and issue. And you're not alone in this. I see this confusion with almost every physician I work with. Here's why this matters so much. When you misidentify what's happening to you, you apply the wrong solution. It's like prescribing antibiotics for a viral infection. Not only will it not work, it might actually make things worse and put you up for unintended consequences. So let me share a quick story about a surgeon I worked with as an example. She was doing everything right: meditation, exercise, therapy, but she was still miserable. Why? Because she was treating burnout when she was actually experiencing moral injury. The moment when we correctly identified what was happening, everything changed. She stopped blaming herself and started addressing the real issue. And by the end of this video, you'll have the same clarity. Let's start with burnout. The clinical definition of burnout includes three key components: emotional exhaustion, depersonalization or cynicism, and reduced professional efficacy. But here's the crucial part. Burnout is framed as a personal problem. It suggests that you are depleted and that you need more resilience. The implied solution: self-care, more sleep, better boundaries, meditation, personal interventions. And sometimes that's exactly what's needed. But for many physicians I work with, these solutions don't touch the real problem. Moral injury, on the other hand, is fundamentally different. The term actually comes from war trauma research and describes the psychological damage that occurs when you're forced to act against your moral code. For physicians, it's easy to see how this happens. It happens when systemic constraints prevent you from providing the care you know your patients need. What's the key difference? Moral injury really isn't about your depletion or running out of energy or your tank running empty. It's about being wounded by a broken system that wasn't intended to help people or to make it easier for providers. Recent research published in the Journal of Internal Medicine found that over 80% of physicians report symptoms consistent with moral injury. This isn't about you lacking resilience, it's about working in a system that's broken and that makes providing care nearly impossible. So let me break down a few more key differences that will help you distinguish between burnout and moral injury and help you figure out what the best path forward for you is. With burnout, you feel exhausted, but you might still find some meaning in your work. The solutions involve self-care and setting personal boundaries, despite the dysfunction of the system. With moral injury, you feel a deep sense that you're betraying your patients or your values. You feel anger at the system, and you feel profound guilt. The exhaustion comes from fighting impossible constraints. Notice the difference in how these feel in your body and mind? Subtle, but it's there. Let me share another coaching story. Dr. K, we'll call him, was convinced that he was burned out. He'd reduced his hours, he tried meditation, he even took a sabbatical. Nothing really helped. Returned to work, he'd feel better for a few days, and then the same despair returned within really short order. And as we explored his experience, he described feeling like he was selling out his patients because he couldn't give them the care that they needed or the time that they needed. He was haunted by a case where he missed something important and missed a diagnosis because he was rushing between patients and just didn't have the bandwidth to sort everything out. This wasn't burnout, this was classic moral injury. The system was forcing him to practice in a way that violated his deepest values. No amount of self-care could fix that fundamental conflict. If you're truly experiencing burnout, here's your recovery path. First, you need genuine rest. Not just a weekend, not a nap, but possibly extended time away if you can manage it. Second, you need to establish firm boundaries around work hours and on-call responsibilities. Third, prioritize physical basics: sleep, nutrition, and movement. Fourth, reconnect with meaning through patient interactions that remind you why you became a physician. And finally, fifth, consider working with a coach or a therapist who specializes in physician well-being. I've seen these strategies work perfectly for physicians with true burnout. But here's the key. They work only for burnout, not necessarily for moral injury. Moral injury, on the other hand, and recovering from moral injury requires a different approach. First, recognize that your suffering comes from external constraints, comes from the system, not from personal weakness. This shift alone can be tremendously healing. It's freeing to recognize that you're not the problem. Second, find community with other physicians who understand this distinction. Isolation makes moral injury worse, while connection provides validation. Medicine can be lonely after all. Third, take strategic action. This might mean advocating for systemic changes, finding a practice setting more aligned with your values, or creating innovative care models. Do something that allows you to work within the system. Fourth, maintain your moral compass by finding ways, even small ones, to practice medicine according to your values. And fifth, engage in what I call moral repair, deliberate reflection on the gap between your ideals and your reality without self-blame. Now, here's something important. Many physicians, and I fall in this category, experience both burnout and moral injuries simultaneously. The prolonged stress of moral injury often leads to personal depletion. If that's you, you need to address both conditions, but in the right order. Start with the moral injury components first, then address the burnout symptoms. I found that when physicians address the systemic issues first, the personal exhaustion often improves naturally, but not always. And sometimes you need both approaches. Now I want to emphasize something really crucial. If you're suffering from moral injury, it is not your fault. Repeat after me. It is not my fault. You haven't failed. You haven't lost your compassion. You are not weak. You're a dedicated physician who's trying to provide excellent care in a system that often makes that impossible. Simply recognizing this distinction can be incredibly validating. Many physicians tell me they feel an enormous weight lift when they realize they're not personally failing. They're being failed by a broken system that has in turn broken them. This, however, doesn't mean you're powerless. It does mean you need the right tools for recovery. Now that you understand the crucial difference between burnout and moral injury, your next step is to determine which one you're experiencing, or if you're dealing with both. To help with that, I've created a comprehensive self-assessment tool that will help you identify exactly what you're facing and provide tailored recovery strategies. This detailed guide has helped hundreds of physicians get clarity and start their recovery journey. Click the link in the description below to download it now. Don't continue treating the wrong condition. Get clarity on what you need today. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Does this distinction from burnout and moral injury resonate with your experience? Share your thoughts below and I'll personally respond to as many comments as I can. If you found this helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe for more content on physician well-being and career fulfillment. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, correctly identifying your condition is the first step toward healing. You became a physician to help others. Now it's time to help yourself. This is Dr. Ben with The Developing Doctor, and I'll see you in the next video.